Okay, guys, welcome back to the Health, Wealth, and Sex podcast. This is episode number 7, really getting the ball rolling now and exploring all sorts of topics around self-actualization, physical fitness, health, wealth, and physique development in our cases. Just as a quick life update, where are we at? I'm 2 weeks out now from my warm-up show for the 2024 bodybuilding season. Things are getting spicy, and I think it's
exciting.
good. And Alex is currently preparing for his men's physique show. How many weeks out are you?
22, but I've come in early, shall we say? How are you feeling anyway? You're still alive and kicking?
So 22 weeks out, you're like 4 weeks out.
Yes.
You can kind of, and this is like a circumstance where you can kind of grow into shows and refine your physique and actually be. This is an ideal position, I think, and the position I want to be. The reason for doing a warm up is to get like 85% of your look with about 12 weeks, maybe 10 weeks until you're like where you want to be presenting sort of 95 to 100%, refining your look and so on. If you're doing a full season, obviously you'll pick your biggest show to be 100% for, whether that's, British finals or I'm off to Las Vegas, and of course, like for me with the season, I'm mostly just planning it around experiences. So I'm not too interested in sort of popping to a pro qualifier in Nebworth or something like that. I can go to Alicante, I can go to Estoril, I can go to Cluj-Napoca, I can go to Las Vegas, I can go to Italy. I'm not sure the city yet, but I can build my season around that and like book 4 or 5 days, and it's almost that break from your groundhog day, because prep becomes that when you're on a short timeline in particular. I haven't deloaded, which means I'm carrying niggles, and sleep quality's been impaired because systemic stress is tolerable, but it's a little higher than I would normally ride it. But that buys me 4 weeks of downtime and then a 6-week run-in, so I can present a bigger, fresher look, for that next show. So like having a season strategy, even if you're a beginner or novice, entering a first timer show, prior to that, having done like a mini cut or something, like where you push yourself, you get a sense of like where your sticking points are, what kind of compromises you find in your life, and so on. And today, we're talking ostensibly about like productivity. Whether that's you've got a professional career, you've got other goals outside of that within that career, as well, and also for myself, yourself, how we are almost building out our day to kind of also marry with our goals, our happiness, doing what we love, doing what we're good at, and so on. So it's an interesting topic, I think, to talk about today. How I'm feeling, man, like pockets of fatigue each day, which I know will dissipate. So I'll allow myself downtime and then move into another work block. I'll do some cardio, and I'll rest and so on. So just sort of like chipping away,
Picking your moments when to push and when to chill, so to speak.
Yeah, like I'm up in the morning, I'm good, I'm energetic. I've got, a good chunk of my cardio, my posing practice out of the way, a dog walk, and then I can, have my first meal. And I'm fatigued then, but I'm sat doing a work block, and actually then the fatigue dissipates and I'm ready to go and do, my next round of cardio and so on, which also gives me a break from the screen time and so on. There's something I need to keep more of, I think, when I move back to off season, is taking these sort of 10-minute, 20-minute breaks across a 3 to 4 hour work block, where I hop on the treadmill for 10 minutes, maybe make a coffee or something and return, because I found that I've been more productive actually.
Well, exactly, because I use a very similar strategy. So we're talking about productivity today. I tend to find I have these. I'll either schedule them in, so I'll have like a work block, and that can be anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes until I find it getting a bit grindy. And what I mean by that is almost like a lack of flow to my work, where I'm almost having to effort my work out. And then I won't even necessarily have a break per se, but it'll be 10 minutes of a different style of task. I'll task switch, and
Okay.
it seems to be not that we're always after the need to be productive in every aspect. If you want to sit on the sofa for 10 minutes or whatever, or look out the window, that's cool. But if you've got a lot on, for example, I might do 40 minutes of cognitive based tasking at my computer, and then I might say, right, I've been sat down too long, I'm finding it a bit grindy, I'm going to do 10 minutes of, oh god, I don't know, human stuff, put the washing away,
Yeah.
empty the dishwasher. Like, it's still stuff I need to do, but it feels different, and then I can actually come back to my cognitive based tasking at the computer. So task shifting, and where it feels different, can be a good strategy for keeping moving forward whilst retaining some freshness to your working.
Yeah, it's about like productivity and happiness as well. There was a really interesting study, and some companies have employed it, and it sounds fairly magnanimous because ostensibly it creates happier employees, but it's also not that magnanimous because they're much more productive.
Yeah.
And essentially, what they did was they just had people at their desk all day who ate their lunch at their desk, and they were sedentary. This is the lowest level of productivity and happiness.
Mm.
The next thing was they were at their desk for two fairly lengthy work blocks, up to 4 hours. But in that break, like a lunch break, they went to the gym or something like
Yeah.
that. They were more productive, but they weren't any happier
Okay.
significantly. The work group that was the happiest and most productive had the lunch break, whether they were active or not. Gym didn't really matter, but for every hour they worked, for 5 minutes they had to leave their desk and walk around.
Cool. Yeah.
And they were the most productive and the happiest. And so obviously the happiest metric is they're just asking the demographic and so on. Productivity was measurable. And I think that's interesting because anecdotally, where I've had more food, where I've not had because my setup's relatively new, right?
Mm.
I've got because of changing life circumstances that took me like a couple of years to resolve, been very compromised. But I know what my kind of ideal setup is. And I had this sort of blank slate to almost create it. And it took time, it took energy, and it took compromise. But now I've got this setup where actually, when I move into prep, and it's like sometimes I don't have the energy for 60 minutes cardio at the end of the day. Right. So I've kind of been like, I need to chip away at this through the day. And for those that know me with my body sort of composition, my style, and everything like that, I do a lot of like low intensity kind of chronic activity. So it's almost like fatigue kicks in one narrative, like in the work block or anything like that. And I know in the back of my mind, I've got to move. So I hop on the treadmill for 10 minutes and so on. And it was kind of on a, that's just how I had to do it because I couldn't, I didn't have the energy, I was like hanging off the treadmill at 2 kilometers an hour, trying to finish off my expenditure goal for the day. It wasn't even efficient, and it's miserable. Instead I was like, okay, I'm just gonna I'll do 10 minutes here, I'll do 10 minutes here. And coming back, I was getting more productive at work. And like my day wasn't so miserable because obviously like 2 hours into a work block when you're glucose deprived.
Oh yeah.
Like you're really becoming unproductive and plowing through and you're not enjoying it. Similarly, 60 minutes of straight incline treadmill walking is like tiring and tiresome. So it's kind of like been a bit of a revelation. Like, felt so much fitter for doing the morning fasted cardio, and my my digestion is so much better. So in the off season, I tend to coffee, get meal one in, and then walk the dog to kind of stimulate appetite and everything. But with the treadmill, this commercial grade treadmill that I've invested in, which is like super palatable to use. So actually 20 minutes walking on that after my morning coffee. And even then having breakfast, and then because the dog likes his lie in, then getting him out for his activity, because I never get good steps in with a Westie, and it's taking his time. It's like I'm going to keep these patterns even when they're not like, well, this is the only way I can do it. Do you know what I mean? Because I've noticed that they serve me.
Yeah.
And body composition is always better when you're active, but not in a glucose intensive state, outside of your resistance training.
Yes.
Other athletic endeavors, whatever, like you're spending your glucose on that, that's fine. We want to preserve that for training performance. So
yeah, I again, to sort of pick up on some of your points there. So I train at home. I've got a decent enough home gym setup. What I noticed was similar to what you're saying with the cardio. If I tried to do what I needed to do in one block of time, um, after the halfway point, so to speak, in my session, performance would drop off. But fatigue would accumulate rapidly. No matter what I did post session, I was cognitively impaired and just energy levels were poor. So I started to do 2-a-day training, and people say, "Oh my God, you train twice a day." And it's like,
yes.
no, what I do is I take one workout and I put some of it at the start of the day and some at the end of the day. And a bit like with you, it's a bit of a revelation where it was like, hey, I feel energized after each block. I feel better cognitively, and also I don't have any energy crash. So I bracket my day. I get up and I do some training, and I not pre-bed, but like towards the end of the afternoon, I do some training. It's one session. I've just split them up, so it means I can eat and rest in between, and it again a bit of a revelation. Like, oh, that's quite cool. I don't have to like sort of be dead at the end of my session. I can bank those winnings, recover, and then go again.
Yeah. Have you noticed, just anecdotally, if I sit sedentary and caffeinate, I don't feel overly energized in the same way. But if I caffeinate and then do some activity, then I'm energized. I've
It's
noticed
blissful.
that
Yeah.
prior to my training sessions, I have like a pre-workout. And then I would like work my way into a session and kind of peak 20-25 minutes in. But now I do 10 minutes of the stair mill. And I noticed this like when I was really on like low carbs, and I would have got loads of caffeine, it's doing seemingly fuck all. But then I would have like a small amount of carb powder at the start of a training session.
Okay.
It was like the glucose met the caffeine in the brain, and I ignite for
Yeah.
about 30-40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I sort of took that away. And so what I've learned to do is kind of marry my stimulants to some kind of activity, and it's like a cleaner productivity somehow. And I think it's endorphin related. So I think
I
when
was
you've
going to
got that
say it'd be the
kind
endorphins
of,
meeting with the caffeine. Yeah.
so you've got kind of like the dopamine hit from the activity meeting the stimulant effect of the caffeine in the adrenals, and that's been quite like a good productivity hack. Like my workouts are more efficient and effective. My work blocks also more
Yes.
effective. Like, have a coffee and then hop on the treadmill. Have an espresso and then walk the dog. Of course, I'm caffeinating a little more. It's very under control for prep. I have, I think, most days now. I'll have like an afternoon coffee before like this kind of stuff, a podcast or mentoring calls or whatever. But there was always like 1 or 2 coffees in the morning and a pre-workout. And that's increased by like potentially on a needs basis and 1 additional coffee. And I'm at like, I don't know, maybe like 7 7-8% body fat.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Which is the sticky point. Getting down from there is really fucking attritional. You need to take your time. Getting down to 12 is a piece of piss.
Yes, yeah, you walk into it, don't you? Yeah.
Dropping down to like 10, 9, like fatigue cost, like
Yeah.
life's hard. And you
Yes.
need those hacks. You need those like fundamentals of nutrition, fundamentals of quality sleep and everything to even get there.
Yeah.
Like you just won't. You can't do
Yeah,
it.
you learn the tricks when you sort of
I
when
don't
for
think
whatever
they're not
reason you
tricks, are they? It's just like in order to get your body to do what it doesn't want to do, you need a certain sort of practical setup.
Yeah.
Because anything too attritional won't be sustainable enough. The systemic stress will be too high, the fatigue cost is too high, and the emotional cost, as well as you start this failure cascade, which we've talked about in like overreach in previous episodes. But like your failure cascade always starts with stress and fatigue accumulation.
Yeah.
It's mismanaged. What you'll find is you'll go from kind of peak capacity to almost no capacity in the space of like a week. And acutely within your day, that's how that applies to the work blocks, right? It's like you're avoiding kind of like productivity overreach so that you don't waste time, right? Like productivity is about buying back time. I touched on it just prior to the podcast we were chatting. Like productivity is buying back as much time to do the things that you love and the things that you're effective at that make you the most money pro rata. Like that's the ideal kind of setup. So you've got enough energy and enough time to have a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Really, with relative freedom. That's my definition of productivity.
Yeah. I think there's a few things you've said there. Just to unpick is when for whatever reason you're choosing to be lean and stay lean for a period, like you were saying, you need to almost, God, I hate the word hacks, but stumble across hacks. How do I sort of live here? The wheels don't come off, and I feel a version of good. And such a basic one, isn't it? But 100 to 150 milligrams of caffeine spread crucially through the day is wonderful. It's like, well, most people do that. It's like,
I'm just gonna throw that out
oh,
there.
yeah.
600.
But what I see is a lot of
Recommended
people.
The upper limit's 400 today, by the way, guys.
What I see a lot of people do is they'll take a pre-workout, and of course pre-workouts are dosed wild at the moment. The more caffeine, the better. It's like they'll often blow 300 calories, 300 milligrams of caffeine in a serving, and it may have been. Think how much caffeine you actually need to get that nice effect. The way you were talking about pairing it with an activity. Now, me personally, I don't need a lot to get that feeling. Now, my caffeine consumption is probably quite high, but it's spread over the course of the day on a sort of a needs basis. So that's sort of a not micro dosing, but drip feeding it through my day to have that impact that you were talking about, where there's a lot of positive outcomes. I'm not like sort of going into anxiety or shaking in a corner. Just playing, playing that card sensibly.
And to be fair,
it's important.
You've got quite like a busy day. With kind of finite recovery resources. As we're dieting, we reduce those recovery resources. And as stress accumulates when dieting moves into getting exotically lean, we start losing more recovery resources from like sleep and so on. And so I guess well, kind of losing my thread a little bit here. I guess the thing that I observe is that when like my sleep's on point off season, my nutrition meets the demand, my need for caffeine, my sensitivity to stimulants is much, much higher. So while right now I have a scoop of 250 milligram or 200 milligram pre-workout, and that's perfect for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm managing fatigue well enough that I don't need 400 fucking milligrams just to motivate myself to go to the gym.
That's where you've got to keep your eyes peeled. Yeah.
That's not that you've accustomed yourself to caffeine or something like that. It's that you've leveraged caffeine to push through fatigue, and it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And then this is not a productive scenario. So when you're not compromised, your exposure to stimulants isn't necessarily very high. And that does mean that you've got a little bit of runway for more stimulant use without compromising your key recovery resource, which is like sleep and stress management. You've got a little bit more runway there for when you are compromised. So if we are always compromised, or we're abusing stimulants in order to be productive, all that's happening is that you're trending into increasing unproductivity.
You're unwittingly backing yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
Because well, this is it. It's and you know it's really really easy to do, because when you're feeling, hungry and depleted and fatigue's very high, the urge to reach for a stimulant will absolutely be there, because you want to feel better and you want to feel, and you need, and ultimately we live lives, all of us, where we need to perform, but be it in the gym, be it in life, be it in our interactions with people. So it's very easy to reach for something which you hope is going to plaster over that crack, but you can only push so hard,
right? Like fatigue's high for whatever reason, you had a shit night's sleep. Like sometimes it's like you got like a 1-year-old child, you kind of be you are going to be overreached, and you're going to be like leveraging stimulants to do what needs to be done. One thing that I've learned in competition prep is that you need to do things tired. So you can't pro-caffeinate, it's before I do anything, I need to have some caffeine. Like the use of external stimulants in place of motivation isn't really a good sustainable thing. So like, what do I need to do? Clean the house. Okay. Do I need to have a fucking coffee?
Yeah.
In order to
do I need to have a pre-workout?
Glucose effective. Just do it tired, right?
Yeah.
Can't be like, I've had negotiations with emptying the bin, right? The bin's full and I'm so tired. Not only do I not want to do it, but I'm kind of enraged deep down.
The sheer idea
I have to empty the bin, like someone else should do it for me. This is the kind of the ego coming through, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
Emperor syndrome. Yeah.
And when I was working with Rob Latty, like the mindset coach, we had a lot of conversations around just negotiation. He had this thing where it was like, every time you start negotiating with doing something, move. He said, you go 1, 2, 3, go. He said, it sounds stupid, but just say it out loud. 1, 2, 3, go, and stand up.
Yeah.
Right. And the amount of things then that you just crack on with without negotiation. And what I was realizing was that negotiation with motivation to do what needed to be done, but I didn't really want to do it, was a fatigue cost, right?
Yes, yeah.
My productivity and happiness. So, it's like little awarenesses around your kind of proclivities towards, what's easy for you to do and what you don't really want to do, but needs to be done for you to succeed. And of course, this is a shifting scale when fatigue's involved. So you can use stimulants as a band-aid, but ultimately, that shouldn't be. There's something wrong if you need external motivation to do everything. And think about most people's workout routine in the bodybuilding world. So it's like they're going to go and do their favorite thing, workout, presumably. And then they're going to stack that with 400 milligrams of caffeine, right? And then they're going to stack that with their favorite music. And they're essentially high, right? Yeah. When we get high, we get a come down. And that's not a sustainable model. Of course, it's fun, makes training really good. You have a buzzing time, but I do it sometimes. In the off season, I'm in like a good position.
Yeah.
I come in to train, and I have that pre-workout, even though it's unnecessary. kind of know what's going on here because now I've got my 80s tunes on and I'm doing a fucking delt workout, right? Like a 45-minute delt workout,
Calves.
a 6-hour active life, heavy dose stimulant. And I'm banging out the gym and I'm dancing around the gym. I've got an excessive amount of energy and I'm grinning and I'm chatty and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm high.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Like, I know what, like,
But here's the thing as well is, just to, agree, but also play the flip side is I think it builds on the point of, I don't know if it's as you get older or what, it's like having awareness. So first of all, when fatigue's high, having awareness of, right, I'm tired. I'm doing that thing that where I negotiate with the bin, or I'm doing that thing where I'm stressing over some complete minutia. And I know that when I have a big sleep, I'll wake up and I'll be like, what was that train of thought all about? I'm just fatigued. But here's the other thing. It's hard to say, cranking your music up, drinking a ton of pre-workout and training. It's why, and one of the reasons why we love it. So you've got to do it sparingly, but every now and then, like you've sort of said, I
just
just
like
let
months
myself do
ago,
it because it's
like
wicked.
save it for the sessions where you need
Yes,
like
yeah, I hear you.
leverage caffeine as an ergogenic aid. Not for your fucking delt pump, all right? Where then you're driving home, fucking like, and actually a lot
Freaking out.
into this cycle of uppers and downers because of that.
Yeah.
Because habitual behaviors that carry over from diet phases, then when they're not compromised, they continue with it, and so now they're overstimulated, overstressed, and then they're leaning into like there's a lot of cannabis use, which is fine, helps appetite, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's also like use of things like diazepam, so it's like, and then obviously like this kind of like we talked about it, like this accumulation of fatigue and so on.
Yeah.
Um, like a focus drug like modafinil, right? Which even prescribed for narcolepsy, they give you a day off a week. But it's like, okay, dopaminergic agonist to, do all this work all day, plus all these other, and then in the evening, when you should be moving into recovery mode, and actually you should have pockets of recovery all throughout the day. You should be moving from an engaged to a relaxed state and ideally never stressed. And maybe during the day, but at least overnight, very restorative in order to be your best, to be your most productive, to fulfill your dreams, etc., reach all of your goals. That's where you need to be. So you're kind of like harming that process by not, like I said, when it's not necessary, or you get into this like cycle of uppers and downers or something, like check yourself.
Yes.
Because all you need to do is just pull back on the stimulants, accept fatigue and like an adjustment period, and quite rapidly you'll sleep better and feel better. And I've periodically been through health phases with my coach Joe, which were like new to me 5 years ago. So I was in like a chronic state of overreach, where training wouldn't be overly demanding, stimulant use was pulled down accordingly. I wasn't stressing my system with excessive food or a deficit. And I'd often make physique progress because of that super compensation of so much stress removal and improvements in recovery. And I'd be like, oh, I don't actually remember, especially with my previous career being such a burnout, I don't remember ever feeling this good. Like I must have been a child when I last felt this good. And the joy that you can take from life when you've got like great energy and great mood stemming from being relaxed, being restorative, being recovered, like that's living your greatest life.
I can relate to that enormously. So the way my analogy would be when you're in that sort of a highly sympathetic state and you're on permanently, you're in fifth gear all the time, you don't know how to get out of it. It's equivalent of sort of digging a big hole, and then thinking the way to escape that is to keep on digging or dig faster. Come on, we'll keep on going. And the reality is, it's not keeping and going in this direction. It's relaxing. What you're actually after is peace. It's relaxation. It's chilledness. But because you're in this sort of a very driven mode, that driven mode only knows how to drive. So it keeps saying, I'll find it. I'll find what I'm looking for. The answer, it's like, no, that aspect of you needs to drop. You need to be able to relax and chill. What you're after is prior to that drive for periods at least.
You had any experience of like fear of downtime? So almost like staying in this state of burnout and overreach, kind of know that you're there, but
Mm.
like you're afraid to take your foot off the gas for fear of regression, I suppose. And
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
learning there is that you actually do it and find that you don't regress, you actually improve. But
improve. Yeah,
have you been
that
there?
that was that. Yeah, that was a big turning point for me. Was I've mentioned it in previous podcasts that my downtime, and I put inverted commas around that, would be reading a self-help book or some obscure spiritual text, or learning about, some history, in the hope what I would learn would cause me to further improve. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but that was my downtime. So I would
Wasn't
work
that?
my job, I would train, then I would lie in bed and fixate on trying to get something. And there must have been some inherent fear of regression, of taking my foot off the gas. But like you say, on the few times where I sort of was forced to watch some complete crap on TV, that's what I was looking for. And it hit me. And it took a lot of reminders, like, oh, I'm not after continual drive and self-improvement. I'm after relaxation. But I've been so long stuck in this sympathetic state that I've forgotten what it feels like to be relaxed. I can't remember it. Like you said, when I less remember this when I was a child. Yeah, similarly, like, oh, I've just been on for years. I forgot how to ever be off.
Yeah. In the context of physique outcomes, which is the same as the context of performance outcomes anywhere, obviously this kind of like learning from myself, but then like when I started out, so like personal training and so on, this is kind of like the clientele, they need a chaperone, a friend, a buddy, like whatever reason, but they need somebody to kind of take them through exercise to the degree that it's effective, right? But as I've become more successful as an athlete, attracted more athletes, worked with more athletes, I attract this mindset. Motivation is not the issue. Work rate is not the issue.
No.
And what I normally find with them is when they stall, whether it's in a fat loss phase or like they're not loving training anymore, there's like some different things that I'm always looking at with these athletes. So you've stopped enjoying the thing that you love the most, okay?
Mm.
Or you've stopped making progression in training, or your fat loss has stalled. And we're looking at like what's going on in terms of like total stress load, because sometimes that can just be the external stressors absent of the ones that we like are deliberately applying to force the body to change or grow your business or whatever. There'd be like, I don't know, a bereavement or something like that. Yeah, then that can kind of move into that sort of space. But typically, what I need to do with them in almost all cases is remove a stressor. So it's like deload or additional rest. Like some people I've got that's like they were training 6 days a week and kind of progressing, but then getting sick or getting injured,
Mm.
and they've just got very demanding jobs. And they get better results if I put them on like 4 days a week, where maybe 3 are like progression based workouts, and one of them is more of a sort of a pumpy stimulus. Like
Mm.
I increase their recovery time and their progression improves. One of my ladies at the moment, she's in prep and she's just fucking flying, but I see her sleep declining and she's got this like huge amount of stress going on in her personal life.
Mm.
And I made the decision to remove clenbuterol, which is something that she tolerates well. Female, she's leveraged a lot, to typically no issues. But I actually pulled that out, and her sleep quality's improved massively, and so is her sort of feedback, and the looks got fresher, and the rate of
Yeah.
loss has trended down. And we also removed cardio at the same time, so so she's doing less and not using like something that creates an additional calorie deficit. And it's just really interesting
Fascinating, yeah.
because but when the body gets stressed, it becomes unresponsive. When you are stressed and you are fatigued, you become unproductive. So structuring and planning downtime is essential to your success. And fear of downtime becomes your limiting factor, right? I'm stuck, I'm not going forward, because you don't have somebody. So like these people, they working with me a lot of the time, it's like sense checking how much they're doing, and they escalate. Like I had a guy who's stalled out on his diet, and he wrote me, he was like, man, I'm fucked, like I really feel like I need some downtime and take some time off the gym and my weight's not moved for 4 weeks, even that we've been dieting more aggressively and he's relatively new, so I'm still fact finding with him. But then he goes, I've trained 27 days out of the last 30. And I'm like, what?
Wait, hold that there. Yeah.
Programmed like 18.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is why. So on full rest and with a food increase, he's dropped 3 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Because the body goes into some sort of protective mode, doesn't it?
what have you learned? What
Yeah,
have you learned here?
But here's the interesting thing. So you touched on it about 6 days a week to maybe 4, and too much training, and sometimes driving calories down too low. There's some sort of sense between the thought process of, look, 6 days a week is going to get me close to my goals. I understand that. And dieting harder is going to get me to lose fat quicker. Okay, I understand that. But until you actually take that, that leap of faith and say, let me just try going down to 4 sessions. Let me just try sort of adding a little bit of food back in, not bit, but a bit. It's like, and then you see it, and all of a sudden, the 4 sessions and the slightly higher calories translates into results. Your mind gets that data point, and the mind's got to see it for itself and go, oh shit, it wasn't about just simply push, 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 push. There was some sort of a give and take I had to have with the body in order to get results.
Yeah. With everything, more is more up to a point.
Yes.
And that point is determined by your recovery capabilities. I can train 6 days a week. I can do 110 minutes of cardio. Can be productive in work, etc. Grow my business based on like a huge amount of investment in my recovery capabilities, in my sleep non-negotiables, in my expenditure on tissue work, like my downtime, my recovery time, etc. Being binary in that regard of on and off. Like that allows me to be on effectively more than if I wasn't paying attention to those. So that's where your productivity has to respect what's going on in your life. So like we'll drop into maintenance blocks when I project a high period of stress. So like I'm moving house, right? We'll drop down into like 4 sessions a week. I just maintain my body parts. So maybe I'm making some progression, but it's limited. I definitely wouldn't diet through that period, nor would I push food. I still like prioritize sleep and everything as best I can, because it's like the way that I know I'll fail to progress is if I try to keep everything when recovery circumstances change. So like as a professional athlete, training twice a day, eating all the food on the sun, everything like that, what you also see is 10 hours total sleep a day is daily tissue work. Like there's probably as much, if not more time put into recovery than their 4 to 6 hours of training a day. And in the bodybuilder's case, to be honest with you, like you need maybe 60 to 75 minutes of intensive work a day. The rest of it's quite superfluous, to be honest. It's beyond effective. So I think with bodybuilding, people are like, oh, my circumstances they don't permit me progression um, because of X, Y, and Z, or it's not even worth doing. But actually, in order to progress with compromised circumstances, shall we say, you don't need to be able to live up like a pro bodybuilder lifestyle. You just need to be able to get in like 4 hours of effective training a week and a good like relationship with like a whole foods diet and fucking go to bed. Like cut out some of the things that take from your pot that really don't serve you, like junk food and alcohol. Establish this baseline consistency, and then you can thrive. And it's just like anything really. You're just looking at your pot, as Matt said on the previous podcast, right? Like what you put in versus what you take out. You can't just keep taking from your pot and succeed.
I think the other thing is that, and we touched on this in the past as well, that I think when you're new or even intermediate, you think there are 20 boxes to tick, and there's more like 5. I know ticking the box is a bit cliche. Get told off for saying it by people.
No, but you're right. You're right.
But there's maybe, I don't know. Let's like arbitrary. I know, but 5 boxes you need to tick every day. But the fitness industry or whoever, people think there's 20, and they'll say, I'll never tick all those 20 every day. It's like, no, you're right. None of us can. You need to tick 5. Tick these 5.
Yeah. Like picking into minutia and stuff, like for very small percentage increases for, additional stress or financial burden or whatever. Like that's a kind of an elite choice, right? Fundamentals break down to eat, sleep, exercise. In physique development, we say eat, sleep, train, repeat, right? And that's missing nothing. Sleep equals recovery. You can build out from there. Eat equals quality nutrition. You can build out from there. Train equals effective stimulus that takes you, however small the progression, takes you closer to your goals. And remember that growth, personal growth, is key to happiness. That's measurable. So, it's all an investment in you ultimately. And then, if you're finding your day not achievable because you think you've got to do all of this bullshit and tracking data and all this kind of stuff is adding to your stress load, if that's tipping you over into this like unproductive space, is too much. Like simplify that shit. Like I don't weigh and measure food. All right, believe it or not. I work in pack sizes, cup sizes. Like I just like a consistent baseline, which I can adjust. And I know that you do the same. Like it's quite funny when we have our sort of chats about like, okay, like I've made almost 0 adjustments in this prep. It's like where I had chicken thighs, they switched for chicken mini fillets. So okay, boom. I know that you have 3 meals a day, which are kind of like snacks, which are like protein, carb, and fat that you shrink or expand according to your goal.
That's it. And it's like sometimes it'll be like 100 calories out, and you'll get 3 weeks worth of results. It's like it's these little adjustments.
You want a flexible diet, like because I eat like 6 different meals a day. I have plenty of variety. I enjoy them all, but if you want a flexible diet and track macros and so on and so forth, and you get really good at doing it in your head, that's a good piece of work to do. Like one of the reasons why I can say I don't really track is I fucking know what's in my food. It's like
that's it, yeah.
On my Fitness Pal fast, but like I have to go on Fitness Pal. I've got to log this and that time cost, stress cost. You think about numbers, you switched on. Like I just think that like, yeah, that's good for like learning, but like as a sustainable life, it's not necessary, especially to like not drive dynamic or exotic physique outcomes. It is so unnecessary.
I think it's important from a learning point of view. When people
But that's
who
just like reading the label on your food.
Yeah, but you and I well know that people who haven't done this a while, they'll guesstimate a meal's calories, and it'll be, I don't know, lasagna, 200 calories. Wrong, 800 calories. They can't eyeball stuff at all yet. And I suppose
That's portion control, I suppose.
yeah. I think the big one for me is always saying to people, look, don't major in the minors. You know, this idea of double down on the drives of progress. There are about 5 things, 3 things, whatever you want to call it. But I see people really putting all their energies into, you know, number 19, which isn't really a thing. And it's like, you're majoring in the minors there. You're sort of fixating on the 0.05% possible improvement, but you're missing knowing where your calories are at or something. And it's like, yeah, what, and it's something we all do. Why are you reaching for this obscure thing where this key driver's straight in front of
Or
you?
just fixating on things that like aren't effective.
Yeah.
I remember training like a leg session once in Vienna, brutal heat, brutal leg session. And this guy's kind of out of shape. He'd been observing me the whole workout. Could see he was paying attention to me. And I'm noisy anyway, and it was quiet gym and so on. But at the end, like literally fell over from the walking lunges, lay on my back, dripping with sweat, like saturated. And that's when he approached me.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And I sort of get up anyway, I can climb up. And he goes, yeah, I wanted to talk to you. And he just goes, he shakes his belly. People, as a fitness professional, the general population shake their fat at you. It's like a thing. They're like with the like, I want to get rid of this. So they want to get.
Let me show you
Okay.
specifically where.
Yeah,
Let me flap it in your
that's
face.
because like it's a psychological thing. It feels alien on their body, you know. They feel like it's removable. But what he said resonated with me because he goes, "What can I take to get rid of this?"
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the way I look, and I'm enhanced and everything like that. But you observed me train legs for 3 hours and fucking kill myself, and I'm exhausted, and you didn't take home from that, oh, maybe I need to like increase my work rate. He's like that guy in the in Pumping Iron where they've got that awkward moment where Lou Ferrigno's training and he just
Yes.
hands around this Jewish dude and he's
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
like he's out of shape but he's in the gym like whatever, but he's doing like dumbbell curls he could do for 1,000
Yeah. Yeah.
like and,
It's like a warm breeze sort of thing. Yeah.
exactly. So you're training like that while observing somebody training really fucking hard, and your take home wasn't, I need to train harder.
Like, oh, the take home wasn't, oh, effort is a key component,
Yeah,
like sort of intensity, whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
sort of stepping up to the plate. It was come on, tell me the
And
secret.
this is the industry. This is what does it. Like the younger kids. I'm getting back into my training. Want to build like a pattern. Eat well. Get my training really going, and then I'm gonna get on the whey protein. And like in the head, they're like, that's like a game changer. That's what the industry's taught them. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Or creatine,
yeah,
like
well,
watch out.
of course, this is proven,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's also not like,
Not transformative like that though, is it? Like,
no, but
oh Jesus,
Celtec used to go at 70 quid a tub fucking 20 years ago, and it
Yeah,
was
I remember the days. Yeah.
sugar. And that was all sold with Jay Cutler on the front, and Jay Cutler didn't get to 300 pounds rip muscle because he was taking creatine and sugar, right?
I think there was a part of my life where I thought that might have been true.
What was
Good
the
20 odd
other
years
one?
ago.
I remember
I was hoping.
there was a thermogenic, and they had Lee Priest off season with
Hydroxycut? Was it Hydroxycut?
hydroxycut, right? And
Yeah,
it's in the back of the magazines. I remember looking, and I thought, that's what I need.
yeah.
And
That's the thing that I'm missing.
full out of shape, off the gear, off season, eating crap.
Which Lee Priest, of course, was famous for being heavily sloppy in the off season and then dialing it right in.
Yeah, he's happy. He understands balance. And
Something like
I
that.
mean, the extremes, but he's like, if I'm going one extreme, I'm comfortable sitting in the other extreme. That's where I suppose that was his recovery time. But you had this advert, and it's like the reality there is that what he did was he adjusted his diet, just stopped eating junk food and started eating clean food. He wouldn't have weighed and measured it or tracked it too much. And he would have started increasing training, cardio, and gear, you know, not you took a fucking green tea and caffeine pill, which they get results, but not those results.
Not that. They
You know,
turn you stage
I was
lean, do
saving
they?
up my money to buy these
Yeah,
fucking things and
yeah,
imagining like I would transform. And it's like then growth hormone's a big one as well. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna get to this stage, and then like when I can afford it, growth hormone is gonna be this game changer. And it doesn't do shit. Like improves your
no,
recovery capabilities. You can train a bit
yeah.
more and everything like that. But it's like you don't become like Rami or something like
No,
this.
that was the
Uh,
missing
I've
ingredient.
got the potential to become Mr. Olympia if I took gear. Or I'd look like him if I took gear. And nah, the foundations really need to be there for you to maximize that. And if you're lucky, you'll get such an insane response to gear that you get an
Look,
elite physique. But
yeah,
the chances are that you'll just look and feel better.
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
tell you, one of the funny
expectation
ones.
versus reality. You don't
Yeah,
focus on this like small shit or these like game changers or anything like that. Focus on
but it's human nature. Show me the game changer. I tell you, and it still entertains me to this day. Is when and men and women do it. They'll come up to you and they'll say, "Look, all right, I'm seeing the benefits, right? I'm considering to getting into training, but," and I go on. I don't want to get too massive. This idea that a week in the gym, they go to sleep one night, they wake up the next day, and it's like, I've overshot. I'm enormous and peeled
yeah, because
accidentally.
I got bigger legs than most males aesthetic, right? I'm more of a V tape of like beach look. Now I don't want to get big legs like yours. I'm like, you have to be fucking careful, man, because I'm telling you, like one day I did 2 extra sets of leg extensions and I woke
That was
up
it.
like this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
playing.
I I trained at the gym. I walked up the stairs, and then the next day they were just enormous. It's like,
Yeah, one year I went to in prep. I was going to hot yoga. They had one of them, £30 for 30 days thing, and I thought it'd be
mm,
like good to do. And but I was prepping, right, so I was in good shape. And I remember someone new to the class came up to me afterwards, and he's shirtless and that. And of course, like you have like an hour long sauna, didn't you? So you like fucking vascular,
yeah,
dry,
yeah, 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 yeah,
glistening wet, look
yeah.
awesome. And he comes up and he's like, "Man, how long have you been doing this?" And I was like, "Oh, bro, I'm so sorry, but this didn't come from fucking Bikram yoga. Like that, this isn't."
Hot yoga transform me.
I'm sorry to break it to you, but the class that you just
Yeah.
did it isn't going to give you this physique. So yeah, it's really hard to like understand. I think for a lot of people what to do, like where to invest their time in a manner that serves them,
Mm,
and where they're kind of fixating, like you said, on these like future game changers or like I'm happy to be in a holding pattern because when I can leverage this tool or I can
yeah.
be in this better position, then I'll level up and you won't.
No.
The only way that you'll level up is by improving your sort of narrative of eat, train, sleep.
Mastering those basics. Oh, and it's bodybuilding, physique development, whatever you want to call it. It's a Sisyphean task. This idea of you are rolling the boulder up the hill, marginal gain, slowly, slowly. Even if you're on drugs, you're rolling that boulder. But again, it's sold to us like, hey, you don't need to roll the boulder. You need testosterone. And then it's like, no, you do need to roll the boulder. Everyone rolls the boulder.
Yeah. And while you're rolling that boulder, like my view is like to put myself in the best possible position. So when I reach that that summit, um, like my progression can go through the roof. So I've not prepped until now because since 2021 because I've been compromised at skin cancer, life circumstances, moving from another country, etc. Like why? It's not going to work very well. But all that time, I've got this foundation of quality nutrition as best I can execute it, quality recovery, quality training as best as I can execute them in those circumstances, and also acknowledging my circumstances. So now I could do a bigger training session, you know, like because my setup's better, my recovery can be better, etc. And the reason why I've been able to move from peak off season to competition ready in 8 weeks, to be honest with you, I was there in 8 weeks. And you know as well from some of our conversations that for a couple of those weeks I could have been probably more optimal because of a significant stressor that I removed. And it's like because everything's aligned, and you know I've got to this position, when that volume dial goes up, then you know the results can come really, really fast. But that's not commonplace. That's took work to get into that position. So when you're building a business, or you're not taking money straight out of that business, what you're looking for most is kind of like buy back time, efficiency, productivity, drive revenue, and so on. Like if you work pro rata, making more money by doing more hours will only work up to a point, and you'll reach a cap, right? Personal trainers do it a lot. So it's like you reach 40 hours and you'll never get a pay rise. It's PT. Prices stay kind of fixed. And you'll never ever make great money, nor will you have like that ideal of like a 20 to 30 hour. I think a 25-hour working week is probably like an ideal to keep you engaged, happy, you know, doing something you love. Like working towards that life balance, it's not going to be gifted to you. You know, that's your slog, and you can get into that position, and then that's when it like you said, it's you know, the ball starts, or the boulder starts rolling down your hill, and you start gathering momentum. You're like, fuck, this escalated quickly. Like, I can't believe how fast this has happened. It didn't happen fast. It was on a foundation that took you years, whether that was working 2 jobs, seeking higher education while working out whilst also doing, you know, a 12-hour laboring shift, like all of those things that you push yourself to do, which when you're younger, like absolutely you've got the recovery resources. Like when you're older, like you'll start to respect that like much more, because you'll realize your limiting factors.
You ever hear the story of the I'll butcher it, so I'll do my best, of the Chinese bamboo tree? So basically, the Chinese bamboo tree, when it's under the ground, it takes, like I say, forever, you know, to get ready to sprout up. Ages. Let's say it takes, I don't know, 20 weeks. But once it breaks the surface, it grows like 20 foot in 2 weeks. And people looking from an outside, even if you sat on your deck chair watching that, you'd go, whoa, look at that. It just shot, it just went bang. And it's like, no, there was a ton happening underneath the earth that you didn't see. Time, building the foundational structures so it could do that. So that's a lot like life, where there'll be periods in your life where people go, it's working out so well for you. You're so lucky. I can't believe how quickly it's all unfolding. It's like, dude, you didn't see the bit where I was up at 2 in the morning. I was working my butt off just to get these bricks in place, just to learn what I've learned, you know?
You are you're lucky to be in this position. So yeah, I got up at 3:30 a.m. Every day, and I started work, and I went home in the afternoon to walk the dog, and I went back to work, and I got home at 9:30 at night, and you know I went on 5 hours sleep and so on, and it was like you know I had to do that, and aspects of that, and obviously as you start winning and everything, the kind of you know the balance can kind of come with time, but there's no progression without like investment. Like you have to do something hard. So if you're sat and you're like, I'm down here and I want to be up here, and I'm waiting for something, it's like buying a lottery ticket. Right. If you want to be wealthy, right, a good way to just sit doing what you're doing, no dynamic trajectory whatsoever, but you buy a lottery ticket once a week, and like maybe you're lucky, maybe something happens that's life changing, that like that, but it's incredibly rare. So the chances are that that won't happen for you.
Mm.
So if you're not willing to kind of work extra hard, you'll never get to a position where you'll have ultimate freedom and happiness,
At
right?
some point, you need to pay some sort of cost. You know, and we can look back at that. You know, are you 40? I'm 43. It's like I look back and anything of any value that I've ever got, I had to work for. Nothing fell into my lap. There's this nice idea that maybe something good will just manifest and all the rest of it, but everything I got required some sort of hard work and some
Every,
sort of sacrifice.
can we say everything that you progressed, that you built, required that? Because let's not forget how privileged that we are. All right, there are like I don't spend a significant part of my day sourcing water.
No.
Some populations do, you know, and so we're incredibly privileged to even be able to pursue these kind of esoteric self-actualization goals. Like this is an incredible amount of privilege. You're just gonna like waste it as well, you
Yeah.
know. um you're privileged to have a healthy body that you feel good in. You can choose that, and you can choose to undermine that, compromise
Mm.
it, abuse it, and it's like, fuck, can you imagine, like you work to grow one particular grain that happens to thrive on your land. You work your ass off every
Mm.
day, and this is so that you can eat, right? And maybe afford some degree of comfort, like shelter, you know. um like we're born with so many of these things that we take for granted,
Yeah.
and instead it's like I'm gonna spank my money on dominoes. But like it's this the Western population is so um
We've lost sight of what we've got.
unaware
Yeah, yeah,
of our privilege, that there's zero gratitude, and like even being grateful for your body and like in your
yeah.
health and everything like that. And like, okay, come on, you know, there's balance, there's enjoyment and everything like that. But it's like, can you imagine you work that your ass off for a fucking bowl of boring ass bowl of grain every night, and there's some fucker eating a triple XL pizza, like way beyond their calorie demands, that they spent, you know, $50 on or something.
And complaining they've got acid reflux. You know, it's like kind of
Look at that.
it blows your mind, doesn't it? Oh, I don't
I'm
feel so
depressed.
good.
I'm depressed. I'm unhappy, and all this kind of stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, you don't even fucking give yourself the chance of a good day
No.
by like, you know, serving what you have. You know, you're just self-sabotaging, self-harming, right? And for
Well,
me,
that potential we've all got in us, you know, that Maslow's hierarchy of, you know, that self-actualization at the top of the pyramid. It's like maybe we never get there, but I don't know. It seems like a good task to take up, doesn't it? To become a version of yourself that doesn't suck, basically.
it's a peculiar human behavior to self-sabotage.
Mm. But it's everywhere, and you know,
But um, the psychology around it, I think, is fascinating. Um, you know, I mean,
a lot of it comes from childhood, I
way
think.
massively in away from productivity, but like if you
Mm.
guys are following, this all ties in to our sense of, you know, success. So we're not talking so much time management and stuff here. We're talking about investment in your cup so that you can be successful and productive and so on. And it's become a more esoteric conversation, I suppose, at this point. But it really is interesting. And that proclivity to self sabotage and having awareness around it, and really looking at your behaviors, your habits, you know, the things that you do in your life that don't elevate you. Why do you do them?
Yeah.
You know, and then is that driving your happiness? Because largely my experience is it drives or drove unhappiness in me, you know. I was drinking, and like it was like a vicious cycle of unhappiness, really. I was unproductive at work, which meant I was working exhausting hours.
Mm.
which meant that my stress levels were chronic, which meant that my mental health was poor, which meant that I leveraged alcohol because that was something that I knew could change the way that I feel, which made me ultimately feel worse because the cost and the cumulative cost. And it's like, if you could just have one good day, right? One day where you eat in a manner that serves you, one day in which you're active and also restful and relaxed, one day that you have a good night's sleep, your life could change overnight. But that's not going to be given to you, you know? And yes, if you don't know where to fucking start, then mentors and coaches and so on, should guide you through that process because you're lost.
I think that's it, isn't it? And I think it's and sometimes we are lost. I've been lost in the past over various things, and I've needed a mentor or a supporter just to almost pull you out of the hole. It's so obvious when you're out of it. Oh, I was lost, or I was in that hole. Why did I think that was going to help me? But
Yeah.
sometimes the need to have a trusted voice or a helping hand just to say, look, just come over, just base camp with me over here for a while. Have a cup of tea with me
Yeah.
and have a rest. We'll talk about when you've had a nap, sort of thing, and see things a little more clearly. So yeah, I can relate to that a lot.
Yeah, I suppose two scenarios, I suppose, to wrap up with, maybe two audiences particularly listening. So ones that are struggling to get going, right? And need to make basic lifestyle changes, very basic, very executable, to give themselves the chance of a good day to start to build momentum. And then there's probably a wider audience that we're talking to here as well, that are so driven and so focused on progression, that they're in a state of like burnout and overreach and unproductivity, that almost needs the reinforcement that your recovery is part of your work, is part of your success. It's a mindset shift. If you don't work to invest in yourself, then you won't serve your family, you won't thrive in your career, you won't feel good in yourself, your mental health will be poor. And this kind of like attritional mentality that we get around bodybuilding, like I'll do whatever it takes,
Mm.
is a very red flag in terms of the athlete. Sometimes that just means they'll do fuck all. It's just nonsense coming out of their mouth.
Yeah, it's words.
But sometimes you encounter an individual doing so much, that, and that'll always escalate. You'll always have to rein them in, because they'll always go with more is more. That's just how they'll be driven. They'll always challenge their recovery capabilities, and they'll always push into overreach. And that will always lead to the most dynamic change and the most success, provided that overreach is planned and managed with appropriate recovery. As I say, we can't do anything without work, fatigue costs. We can't achieve anything without working at capacity, beyond capacity, moving into overreach. But you can't stay there, right?
Nope.
So that's periodization, and you periodize your life, you periodize your day to be productive, to be successful. So you literally just can't stack your day with stuff that takes from your cup. You have to stack it with about an appropriate amount of investment, an appropriate amount of spend, as
Yeah.
Matt was
When
sort of
you
saying.
when you learn how to rest correctly, the periods of productivity become better, and that's the paradox. The better you learn to rest, the better you learn to perform as well. If you
Yeah,
keep sort of putting your foot to the pedal all the time, I know your productivity doesn't, it goes through the floor, sort of thing, doesn't work out.
yeah. I suppose a lot of people were probably tuned into this and thought, right, productivity are fantastic. Like I want to learn how to fit more into my day.
Yeah, we're
What
saying the opposite.
what we've ended up with is like an overriding message of, yes, you do need to fit more into your day. You can fit more into your day, via an investment route, when you're already working at capacity. And yeah, I mean, of course, there's these hacks we've talked early on about little lifestyle hacks and so on, that we find take us from like good to great. All right. But if you're at average and you want to move to good, you really explore basic opportunities. And I think, this kind of theme that's becoming like it's running through the podcast now of fundamentals around a kind of a great relationship with food that serves you in a number of ways, around being active and exercising, around prioritizing sleep and recovery, as well as a fucking strong work ethic and working as hard as you can within your recovery capabilities. That could be I work my ass off for 8 weeks and take a week's holiday. It can be I work my ass off for 10 hours and then I have 4 hours of downtime and a good night's sleep, like whatever it is. Or I work hard Monday to Friday and then take my weekends. You just can't stack output.
You can't go indefinitely. The mind will try and convince you when it's in that state that it can, and that it's still, I've still got it, I'm still doing well. It's like, you're not,
It's the external message as well. Like everywhere we see, it's like work harder, push yourself, and this is a great message. But it's
a great message to those who need motivating. The problem is that message will meet people who are driven already and motivated, and they'll say, you're right, I do need to become. I used to convince myself that I wasn't very hardworking and motivated. I needed somebody to point out to me that that was a ludicrous thing to say. And I don't mean that in a sort of yay me, but the way I'm sort of psychologically built, it's just inherent in me. It's like, so I used to listen to these messages and I'd be like, you're right, I do need to up my game. It's like, dude, your game's up. There's no extra, level to go.
When I started my couple of years of mindset coaching with Rob, which was a big investment for me, one of the first things he said to me was, do you define yourself as successful? And I was like, oh, no. And he broke down what I had in my life. And he was like, you own your apartment, you're married, you're successful, and you're all these kind of things. My definition of success was that he said to many people that looks like success, right? And that was a bit of a kind of a like a wake up moment as well for me. That one, I had loftier goals, that I wanted to work for, but also just to like not view myself as a failure,
yes,
because I wasn't as elite, or in my mindset. Number one is kind of where I want to be in any kind of environment. So I'm going to drive myself to kind of reach that, and that's a drive for significance. By the way, for people that have been following the hierarchy of needs, significance is one of my key drives, and I leverage it to kind of succeed at things. But it was an interesting thing to reflect upon for sure. If you're feeling like you're not doing enough, if you're feeling like you are unsuccessful, you're a failure, or you're getting all these kind of negative thoughts, like hold up your life and also hold it up against others. And they
take stock.
It can often take
stock of what you've got. We have a terrible habit as humans to completely overlook what we've got. Like, well, I've got that, but that's not an interest to me now. Forget that. That was yesterday's, yesterday's news. I've got nothing. I need to attain. No, it's like you're doing all right. You're doing okay. You've picked up a lot of wins.
Like it's like the daily gratitudes, right? It seems like a fairly banal journaling exercise, but like can shift you into like a positive mind frame.
Yeah.
It's raining outside. I'm so grateful to have shelter. Yeah. Or I'm in the car. It's a miserable day. I'm so grateful that I'm not walking. Like it's really easy to like if you use gratitudes in the right way, then like it'll turn you from this like negative mind frame, of course, positive mindset positive output, productivity, and so on, healthier, happier you. So gratitudes are quite important, and they can seem very basic. I'm grateful for my dog.
Mm.
Right? Why am I grateful for my dog, and so on? But like, it's not a tick box exercise.
You hold it in you, don't you? It's like my cat Tony. Every morning, he's screaming at me to feed him, and sometimes if I'm tired, I'm like, "Oh, dude,
Fuck
give me
off,
a
Tony.
break." But then at the same time, there he is, day in, day out, little furry guy, keeps me company, and it's like, don't overlook these little things. It's far too easily done.
Yeah,
You've got a lot of good stuff,
yeah,
like Tony.
yeah. Nice, nice. I think that's good sort of like end point for us to kind of wrap up on, unless you've got anything you want to throw out. I think that's episode 6, productivity to wrap, a very esoteric
Absolutely.
podcast, but yeah, hopefully there's some good take home. So guys, thank you for listening, and subscribe, like, share, ring that bell so that you get notifications of when there's new episodes as well. We do try to get out one a week for you guys, and we hope that you're enjoying the content. If there's anything that you want us to talk about, drop into the comments, anything that interests you, any dialogue you want to spark. We're always super interested. And if you have questions or topics that you want exploring, we're more than happy. In fact, we're grateful for your
Very
input.
grateful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Write in my gratitude diary.
Okay, guys, then we see you next week. Thank you for listening.